All ready to go in? Okay, so we'll get started. Sorry about the delay. We have got some exciting news today, I think, that I want to share. Again, Bill Croyle, Acting Director of the Department of Water Resources. I have with me today Butte County Sheriff Honeit. So what I want to do is kind of go through our standard technical information, and then we'll kind of get into some of the watershed things that we have going on today, and then try to answer any questions you might have. First of all, of course, we still are maintaining our zero flow over the flood control spillway. Our elevation, lake elevation right now, just as a little less than an hour ago, is 848.6. So it's come up about 8 feet since we turned the spillway off, a little bit more. We expect, based on the weather forecast here, with the weather coming in over the weekend, and our releases that are coming out of the Hyatt power plant, we should be somewhere around 853 feet. So I say that it's also based on the forecast. I want to remind everyone that Mother Nature is still in the room. Here we do expect this weather to be a little cooler, but we will see some rainfall in this region over the weekend. Currently our inflows to the reservoir, again, those are fluctuate a little bit throughout the day and evening, but they're about 16,000 CFS per second. And our tail race elevation, in other words, that water that's up against that Hyatt powerhouse, is down around 224 feet, which is, again, coming down from that 254, which required us to waterproof the powerhouse. So by stopping the zero flow over the spillway, we've been able to, again, allow that pool to dewater. And we'll talk a little bit more about the debris removal that we're having right now. So, again, we've reduced, over 22 feet of water or head against that powerhouse, which allows us to reactivate the powerhouse. We have removed 168,000 cubic yards of material in the last few days. The production rate is somewhere during the day about 60,000 CFS and about 30,000 at night. We have both land-based and water-based construction crews. With the removal of this much material, they've been able to build a channel down the river as we kind of designed in our contingency plan, again, to remove the water surface up against that powerhouse and allow the normal operation of the Hyatt powerhouse. So as of 10 o'clock this morning, we were able to activate that facility, and we're currently have 2 units that have been energized, and 1 unit is discharging 1,750 CFS. So we're going through a process in the next 3 days here to go from this kind of ramp up speed up to a design or kind of what we're trying to model is 14,000 CFS per second. So the idea there is to match our inflow. That's going to be the match that we can discharge to the powerhouse at the moment. The idea, we'll ramp that up. We're filling that water that we used to maintain our fish flows, both in the low flow diversion channel and also downstream. So we're going to still maintain 2,500 CFS in the Feather River until we can again bump up those flows, fill up the Thermoledo after bay, the diversion pool, and then we'll be able to increase those fish flows down through the low flow channel as well as downstream in the Feather River. So pretty exciting day for us. This is a pivot point in how we are managing the inflows to the river, the reservoir elevation. This zero discharge off the flood control spillway can now be delayed. And so again, with the snowpack up above this reservoir, we still have a setting where we might have to use that depending on how the snow comes off or if we get any additional storms in the system. But being able to maintain our fish flows and a zero flow off that spillway allows the construction crews to continue their removal of the sediment in that diversion pool area. A couple questions have come up over the last couple days. Well, how much material do we have in the channel that we need to remove? The normal operating depth of that pool is 70 feet deep, but as the last couple days and as that area is dewatered and we're able to fly our drones and our LiDAR mapping systems, we think there's about 1.7 million acres, 1.7 cubic yards of material. And so we have a lot of work to do to remove that material. We'll continue that as long as it's safe. We have an amazing team of contractors, both water-based as well as land-based, to be able to continue to remove that material, maintain that channel so that we can increase our flows out of the Hyatt power plant. Again, there's a lot of moving pieces in that area right now. We have our production rate, again, is about 60,000 cubic yards per day. I think we're using most of the excavators in Northern California and large dump trucks. So 11 excavators, 4 of the kind of D10 size bulldozers, 36 heavy haul dump trucks, the 30 to 40 yard trucks are down on the debris pile. Those are making about 4 trips a day, 4 trips an hour, 36 trips on some of their work shifts. We have 5 barges, but those barges are made up of a number of different components that are used to move material around as well as float the excavators and clamshells. 3 barges, and right now we had 4 spoil sites, and now we've activated another 5th spoil site. And the idea is to, again, make sure we have enough room to the extent we can remove that spoils and debris from the river, we can have a nice safe place to put that. Again, this is a big day. Again, re-energizing the plant yesterday with the line work. There will be additional power line work in the coming weeks to put a 3rd line up, again, more for a redundant system. We want to hopefully get from that 1,750 CFS where we have now at startup to 3,000 by the end of the day. We have our monitoring teams, the contractor teams, and our incident command posts are all communicating to make sure that we understand the dynamics as that water now comes up from Hyatt, how that moves through our construction site. Again, I want to reiterate, we've maintained our minimum fish flows with additional flows below the after bay discharge, again at 2,500 CFS. The department, as well as the Department of Fish and Wildlife, continue to implement their contingency plan as we pull down the flows on the Feather River to look for those pools, map where those pools are, look for those fish. And so there's been a team any given day between 5 and 10 boats, 20 to 45 people out in those boats, looking for those fish, performing those fish rescues. Our hatchery conditions, again, one of our primary objectives through throughout this event is making sure we're doing everything we can to protect that hatchery. Part of the last couple days is making sure we maintain a certain level of water supply ahead on the intake structure to the hatchery to maintain the fishery resource that we have in the hatchery. Right now, the hatchery is stable. It certainly took some sediment in as through the various discharge periods occurred over the last couple weeks. A lot of work has been done in that hatchery to mitigate some of that, but I think the good news, we still have 2.5 million fall run Chinook salmon and 800,000 steelhead that made it through this event that we have. I was able to tour that facility a couple nights ago. It was very impressive, the amount of effort and kind of the different systems that were put in place to try to protect that resource. A lot of effort went into saving those fish that are still at that facility. We still have 6.5 million Chinook salmon at the Thermalito Annex hatchery, and again, those fish are there. They will probably not likely, as I understand it, move back to this facility. They'll grow and then at the right time be released. So I think, to me, this is a major win for multiple agencies working together in a really pretty tough environment to make sure that that we're doing everything we can to protect, in this case, environmental resources. We also want to, thank Caltrans and the Butte County Road Department to continuing to work together on the roads that have been taking impact from the heavy truck hauling. We actually have still work going on up on Canyon Drive, so that area is shut down right now. They are doing repairs, not only to repair the road conditions that existed here this last couple weeks, but also repair the road so they can take on the vehicle traffic that's going to be needed to repair the spillway itself. A couple questions have come up on any gold that might be found. Okay, so we're not looking for gold. We're focused on public safety. From my point of view, this is not particularly gold-bearing material that we would be associated. A lot of the stuff that's come down the hill is either the native soils or is fill from back in the 1960s when this structure was built. We have definitely opened up Mother Earth through this erosion type event, and so we can see a lot of that, but you don't see the quartz gold type formations that we would see certain kinds of gold. And we do see some false gold or pyrite in some of the material that's now down in the creek bottom. But if you want to help move some rocks, we need to coordinate with our contractors, but I don't think you'll be finding much gold based on what I'm being told. So at the time, again, I want to make sure that we've made copies of a timeline that's available for those that are interested. You can also get this copy of this document off our website at the department. If you go to the Spillway incident, again, this is a PDF file that you can download, and I think you'll find it's pretty informative about the kind of situations that occurred here in the last couple weeks. Maybe as I close out my comments, I want to recognize some of the kind of the hydraulic setting, the weather that we've seen the last couple months here in this area of the state. So in the last 2 months that we've seen in the Feather River watershed, over 4.5 million acre feet of runoff. That is equal to our average annual runoff for the last 100 years. And so we did that, at least so far, with a damaged spillway. And I think that goes to kind of say that this unified command that has come together to deal with a pretty serious critical infrastructure challenge with a lot of hydrology, a lot of Mother Nature coming at us. I understand over 40 agencies have come in to support this unified command, 54 contracting companies, again, to support various elements of this process. So the Feather River Canyon and Butte County have certainly taken, I've seen a lot of water in the first 2 months of this calendar year, and we'll see a lot more come through. But I think, again, we're doing everything we can to manage the inflows and outflows from this facility. We're certainly, glad to see the Hyatt power plant, the waterproofing, the emergency measures put there worked. We were able to fire up that power plant today, and we're looking to increase those flows here in the coming days. Again, we'll keep pushing out the press releases to keep everyone informed, and certainly if you have any questions, we'll push that through our public information office as well as the sheriff's webpage so that we can answer those questions hopefully before you ask them. With that, I'll turn it over to the sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that. I have to echo Director Croyle's view that today is a big day. It's a good day for us. I have had the sense over the last week or so that we were moving in the right direction, and there were some positive measures being taken and certainly some progress being made. And I think today we start seeing a lot of that. I think it's important to certainly thank Director Croyle for the close working relationship that we continue to have. We are in regular contact. He's very good about keeping me up to speed on what's going on, and we work together to make sure that the interests of public safety are always at the forefront of any decision that's made. I also want to thank the rest of the staff at DWR, the hardworking folks that have gone out there and really attacked this problem and are moving us in the right direction, along with the contractors, and many of them from outside of our community have come in. And it's just nice to see a lot of really hardworking people doing their best to get us moving forward on this. So a couple of points that I'll make. Obviously, the removal of the debris in front of the spillway and the ability to start bringing the Hyatt power plant up online is very important to our ongoing efforts to manage this emergency and deal with the evacuation warning that is in place. As you'll recall, I had basically 3 milestones that I wanted to see achieved before we lifted that warning. The first was the fortification of the area in front of the emergency spillway. As you've heard in prior press conferences, that's been complete, and I think that there's a lot of good work that's been done there. In the hopefully very unlikely event that the emergency spillway ever has to be used again, I think that fortification will do us well. Number 2 was the reduction of the lake level down to 850 feet or lower. That has been achieved, and the amount of space that has been created in the lake to accommodate any inflow, based on everything that I'm being told, is sufficient to ensure that we are in good shape as we move through this weekend with a few storms coming in. The third, of course, is the removal of debris and the restoration of the Hyatt. That's well on its way. Director Croyle and I spoke this morning about the evacuation warning and when would be a good time to issue to lift that. After our discussions, we would like to monitor the situation through the weekend and have the power plant brought back up. Thank you. Back up to full capacity, so that we know that it's all working well and it can push the amount of water that was designed to push out. I think taking the weekend to monitor that, especially given the fact that we have some storms coming in, is a prudent course of action at this point. And so we'll revisit that on Monday. I'll, of course, be monitoring through the weekend, but we'll talk again on Monday, make sure things are back up to where they need to be, and that we have that secondary way of moving water out of the reservoir. And that, in my view, reduces the risk significantly and increases our overall posture with regard to public safety. The next thing I'd like to just highlight for you, as you know, we have been working very diligently with our public safety partners on putting together a contingency plan and an evacuation plan based on the lessons that we've learned, and there have been some incredible lessons. I am very pleased that our basic plan for evacuation has been completed, is now just going through the final review with all of our other public safety partners. I would anticipate that being done today. Then we are putting together materials that we're going to use for public outreach and communication of the plan and the map. We are tentatively scheduled to hold a press conference relative to that particular aspect of this on Thursday, March 9th, so it'll be next Thursday. By that point, we should have all of our materials ready, completed, available to the public. We are going to ask, of course, the assistance of our traditional media partners to help us disseminate that information. We're also going to use our social media platforms, both social media platforms from my office, but as well as all of our stakeholders and partners here, which I would anticipate that you'd be able to get to that information through DWR's social media platform, as well as CAL FIRE and any of the other agencies that have been helping out. We are also working on launching a page that will be associated with the Office of Emergency Management, Butte County Office of Emergency Management website, so that people can click on. It'll be an interactive map. They can look at, enter their address, and look to see where they're at and get instructions on what an evacuation might look like in terms of their route and where they might go. I think that will be very, very helpful. In addition to that, we are looking at scheduling some community meetings in those areas that would be affected by an evacuation. We're securing locations and times and dates for that. My anticipation would be that we would do that not next week, but the following week, and start rolling that out so that people will have had an opportunity to look at the material, but then they can actually come, ask questions, give feedback, and learn firsthand what that's all about. I think that's an incredible milestone as well. We have a much more sophisticated approach to managing an evacuation than we had before, based on the incredible lessons that we've learned. And so with that, I don't have anything else to update, and I'll turn it over to either Director Croyle and I for questions.
As you're asking your questions, I will be repeating the questions for the benefit of our social media audience. So bear with us as we get to you and repeat the question. We start to keep those questions succinct, so I will relay them accurately.
Hi, Bill. Could you clarify the 1,700 CFS? Is that based on one turbine?
Yes, one.
The question is the output CFS based on one turbine?
Yeah, yes, that is one turn. I understand Unit 2 is the unit that's been spun up.
Okay. And that's out of how many turbines?
Others.
How many turbines?
Yeah, sorry, Ed. Yep, we'll get this. So there's 6 turbines. 5 are available. There was one that's been down for maintenance. Some pieces of the turbine had to go off out of the state to get repaired and come back. And so right now our full capacity will be based on 5 of the 6 turbines.
And do you need to reduce the water level in the channel even lower to get to 14,000 CFS?
Do you need to reduce the level in the channel even further to get to the level desired?
Yeah, the channel configuration, they'll continue to make it deeper and deeper, but it's my understanding that we now have a cross section within that channel where we can operate at 14,000.
Oh, so you could go to 14,000 theoretically right now?
You could go to 14,000 theoretically right now?
Yes.
Hi, in the event that among that debris there is a significant find of gold or precious metal, who would it belong to? Do you search for it? And if you do find something that's significant in terms of that, would you announce it? Would you let people know that, oh, we found a gold nugget that is worth, $400,000 or whatever it is? What's the protocol on something like this? Is there a penalty for somebody who might get order in pockets of gold?
The question is the protocol surrounding any discovery of gold.
Well, the facility is on state property, so any gold found on state property would be property of the state. If we find gold, it would become part of the property of the state, and that would be turned over to the state. I can't speak to some of the other questions that you're asking.
Yes, Paul, when you're going through the debris, are you looking through the debris carefully to find out if there's anything of any kind of value, whether it's gold or anything that might be something of value? How carefully do you look through that debris and find out what exactly is there?
Are you going through the debris to see if there's anything of value in that debris, whether it's gold or otherwise?
We're focused on the public safety mission. So this is an emergency response, and I hope that we're not looking through our debris pile for any precious metals or any other artifacts that might come out of that. Our goal is to clear this channel and maintain it in a clear configuration so we can maintain proper operation of the Hyatt power plant. That's going to allow us to deal with our hydraulic balance within the reservoir and ultimately the water supply for the rest of the year. So that's our primary mission, is reducing risk to the public, and then with that continued work, make sure that we can maintain our water supplies for the various beneficial use here at the dam all the way down through the system.
Has the National Marine Fisheries Service, up to this point, or do you anticipate in the future, will they impede in any way your need or your ability to do what you need to get the rest of what you need to do to get the powerhouse operational, or the other things you need to do this coming months to rebuild the spillway?
Please address National Marine Fisheries involvement with the EWR. Did I capture that correctly, sir?
Yeah, so again, we have a multi-agency approach to this. We received their comment letter. I think, from my point of view, our environmental team and working with our Department of Fish and Wildlife is making sure that before we got that letter, we were doing almost all of those things that they're asking to do. We've worked very hard in an emergency setting to, bring those different resources to bear on, during the emergency to do the best we can to protect.
You never were considering shutting down during the day and only operating at night, correct?
No, I wasn't.
Considering shutting down during the day, operating only at night?
No, I wasn't. Yeah, our goal, again, is focused on our emergency response for public safety. Stay focused on that. While we're doing that, if we have the time and resources, which I believe we injected those resources into this process, to do everything we can to protect those resources. But I'm not going to stop during the day so I can operate the powerhouse. I need to be able to operate that powerhouse as soon as possible. I need to be able to manage this risk. If I do this without taking water over the top of that impaired spillway in the future, then I'm going to try and do that. In addition, we don't want to take additional water over that emergency spillway. Now, I will use it if I have to, but obviously we're going to do everything we can to prevent that. And so I need that powerhouse. I need the material removed out of the river so that I can efficiently do that.
Billy, you've had a few days with your engineers, helicopters, and drones to assess the damage on the main spillway. What have you found out, and is there any plan whatsoever to begin thinking about repairing that somehow?
Certainly, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's see about capture the spray. Use of drones and other ways to inspect the spillway. What are the plans for possible repair?
What have you been able to have come out of that? What have you realized out of that? And what are the plans for?
What have you realized out of that, and what are the plans for the future?
Yeah. So it's a good question because we have basically two parallel tracks going on right now. Again, the incident command post here with our unified command is focused on the emergency response, stabilizing, better understanding the conditions of all of our infrastructure here. As an example, looking at if we had to take water off the spillway again in the coming days or weeks, is there something we can do to better protect it and stabilize it? So we did have, again, after the drones, after the safety plans, we get in and look at what is there, are the slopes stable? Again, is there things that we can do to help stabilize? In fact, based on that information, both drone footage, aerial photography, and ultimately our geologists and geotechs have been up in the canyon. I don't think they've made it all the way up into the plunge pool because it's pretty dangerous. But we are actually implementing a contingency measure here starting today where we're going to shotcrete, looking up the spillway on the left side. We're going to throw some mats down, shotcrete that so that if we had to use it again, it would minimize the erosion off that left side looking up the canyon. So again, that's something we've learned with all this monitoring, the assessments, as we focus on the emergency response track of this. At the same time, we've had our advanced team for our recovery team here on site. Every couple days, a different group of people, and as well as the engineers that are here now, at some point here will be transitioning over to the recovery team with the information they learned during the response, with all this information we've collected, with the tours of the canyon and the spillway, so that they can start on the alternatives analysis and ultimately, what is the design solution to get us through that November 1st operational flood control structure. So there's an awful lot of work. We also have, yesterday, there's a 5-person independent board that was here that was part of the requirements that FERC put on us to make sure that we're looking at what happened, but also they're embedded on what we're going to do to get us into an environment where they safely can operate that spillway this winter. So they're already been here. They were here yesterday, and that is again part of ramping up the recovery effort. We won't really know much more about the alternatives probably for 2 or 3 more weeks based on the information we've collected so far. And again, we have Army Corps of Engineers here. Army Corps of Engineers is going to be embedded in the recovery team, and so that there's a nice crosswalk between what we're doing now and what they're also doing in this parallel track. So we're gonna be pretty busy for the next couple of 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks as we hopefully get on top of the recovery effort, but also spin up the response effort, but then the recovery effort will be the focus here in the coming weeks and for the remainder of the year.
Clarify, what is a shock treatment?
A shockcrete? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so it's kind of like, for me, it's like sometimes the way they build a pool, a swimming pool. So you go in there, you lay a mat down or a mesh. Sometimes the shockcrete is made up with fibers, like fiberglass fiber or metal fibers, and you can basically spray it on with a hose. And so it firms up and dries really hard, and if you put some kind of structural piece in it, and then it becomes, you're like spray on concrete almost. And so the idea there is to prevent any additional erosion on that left side. So you're really armored. It's kind of similar to what we did below the emergency spillway. In that case, we laid down rock and we kind of glued everything together with a cement concrete mix. Well, in this case, it's not so much rock, but it's basically spraying on so it can stick on the side of the mountain, and it's bolted kind of tied down to the mountain so it'll stay there if we have to use that spillway.
Okay, time to make one more. Someone ask a question?
How much buffer space do you have in the reservoir? Things coming in and things going out, water coming in, water coming out.
How much buffer space do you have in the reservoir?
Well, we got about 16,000 cubic feet per second coming in right now, and as we ramp up the Hyatt power plant up to our design of about 13,500, 14,000 CFS. So we'll still be gaining a little bit of storage, or using up some of our storage. The weather forecast, we'll see a little bump in inflows, maybe somewhere around 20,000, and then ramp back down. We do look like we're getting into another dry 4, 5, 6 day period. So we see those inflows being forecast. Remember, these are forecasts, getting somewhere down 10 or 11. So that's when we start making some more room up and getting ahead of, getting in a better position for that reservoir storage.
One more, anyone who has not had an opportunity to ask a question? Okay, we'll have time for one more follow-up, sir.
Since it's been, after you shut off the water, then obviously a better chance to look at that main spillway. Has it given you any, I know it's still early, any further clues as to what may have gone wrong 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
You realize it's early since the water's been shut off. Have you found anything in the way of clues as to what may have occurred? Did I capture that correctly, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, so we haven't been able to really look at the cause or do the forensics, and again, that's part of the team, the technical teams that have been here, but the other regulatory teams that are here. But what we have done since it's turned off, and we've dried out most of the spillways, so we have a number of people in the spillway yesterday and today that are inspecting the spillway. We have a team and a contractor in grouting and sealing any of the little holes or cracks, anything that they can find, just to make sure, since we do have a dry spillway right now, that we're, again, putting those contingency plans in place to make sure that, again, if we have to take additional water down the existing structure, that it's ready to go for anything we can throw at it. So, that's a normal part of using the spillway. Normally we would probably wait a little longer, but we're not waiting. We're going in and making sure that it's ready to go for any future use that we would have to this year.
One last question.
I understand you and Army Corps are treating this as an emergency until the new spillway structure is restored, so the lake is viable. Do you anticipate, what impediments do you see towards realizing that goal? Things that could be other than a snow melt. What roadblocks do you see to getting that goal seen through as quickly as possible?
What roadblocks do you see? What kind of timeline do you see for this evolution of the emergency before, say, the emergency is concluded?
Yeah.
So we have to deal with the hydraulic setting that we're in. Reactivation of the Hyatt Powerhouse, I think, is our way to move forward. Then it depends on just the rest of the climate. The recovery teams, we're already talking about our permitting concerns, our environmental concerns, making sure that we understand the design and review process by the different, both state and federal agencies that need to approve of the solution, whether it's temporary or permanent. Again, that decision still needs to be made. So there's been a number of coordination calls and meetings to clearly identify what those kind of potential roadblocks are, and a lot of it's not necessarily a roadblock, it's more the time it takes to move through, say, a permitting process or review of a design. And one of the examples, we met with FERC here on site from Washington. So we have FERC, major FERC resources have been informed and educated on our setting here. The concern about timing on approving of a design, whether it's temporary or permanent, is a very important conversation to have. And I think I use the example in many of my conversations, including with the governor, is where typically there might be a 60-day review process, we're going to need an hour. Those are the kind of conversations we'll have. Now, in some cases, we're going to need to break some rules. Now, the rules are not so much because we want to break them, it's because we're going to need to break them to make sure that we still want to do everything right, and we will do that, but we're going to have to do it fast. And so, the process to make sure we have the right people in play that are looking over our shoulder, that are providing that real-time comment, whether they see a challenge or, that we're going in the right direction, we know right away, so we can move through that whole process as fast as we can. If we get a rock in the road, then we got to sit down and make sure we can deal with that rock as fast as we can so that we can get that process done and move on as fast as we can. This has never been done before. And so it's being recognized at not only the state level, but the national level, that the effort that we're going to need to all go through together is we're going to need to push hard. We need to be very clear about what some of those challenges are and make sure we work together to deal with those challenges. And so we're all going to learn a lot. For me, this is critical for not just the Department of Water Resources and Oroville Dam, it's for this community and those communities downstream that are affected by how we operate this dam.
Fast tracking is the spirit.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our press briefing. Thank you for joining us, both here in person and online. I would have one additional thing to